Title: Trapped Miles Below the Earth, The Cave That Eats People. Genre: documentary script. Tone: dark, dramatic, persuasive musical direction. Slow, ambient underscore with occasional intense surges. Think Hans Zimmer's Time meets Trent Reznor's minimalism. Opening sequence. Fade in. A low hum builds in the darkness. Water drips echo like blood hitting cold stone. The screen is black. Only the sound speaks. Narrator low. Steady beneath the surface of our world like caverns so ancient, so unforgiving, that few when or ever return unchanged or alive. This is not folklore. This is a documentary. These are the real stories of caves that consume, torment, and bury the brave. This is The Cave That Eats People. 1. Nutty Putty Cave, Utah, USA, 2009. John Edward Jones entered Nutty Putty Cave on November 24, 2009, with his brother, a medical student and experienced scout. John sought adventure before Thanksgiving. Instead, he found something else, a tunnel that would become his tomb. As he tried to crawl through a tight vertical shaft known as the birth canal, he became stuck head first and upside down. The angled gravity and cave design made escape nearly impossible. Hundreds of rescuers worked for 27 hours. They tried pulleys, drilling, and even managed to speak with him through the rock. But the cave would not let him go. John died trapped, alone, suffocating slowly. His body remains inside the cave to this day, a decision made due to the impossibility of safe retrieval. His story shook the caving community and led to Nutty Putty's permanent closure. Music cue. Slow piano with deep ambient rumble. 2. The Mossdale Caverns Tragedy. Yorkshire Dales, England, 1967. 6 young cavers entered Mossdale Caverns on June 24, 1967. They were well equipped, but unaware of the weather to come. Rain began to fall. Mossdale is notorious for narrow, flooded passages. When the waters rose suddenly, the cave flooded entirely. Rescuers spent days attempting to reach them, but it was too late. The bodies were covered in stages, twisted, drowned, wedged into impossibly small cracks. Mossdale became the scene of one of the UK's worst caving disasters. The entrance was later sealed with concrete. To this day, many in the British caving world refuse to speak of it. Music cue. Distant thunder. Increasing rainfall over low strings. 3. Eagle's Nest Sink, Florida, USA, multiple incidents. Known as the Mount Everest of cave diving. Eagle's Nest Sink is stunning and deadly. Deep inside the Floridan aquifer, its blue waters mask a labyrinth of submerged tunnels. Over the years, dozens of divers have lost their lives here. One particularly tragic case was that of 2 teenagers drowned in 2012. They had snuck past the warning signs, descending into a place far beyond their training. One ran out of air. The other tried to save him. Neither returned. Despite the risks, divers still go. The beauty of Eagle's Nest is irresistible, even if it kills. Music cue. Bubbling water with heartbeats and rising string tension. 4. Bozeman's Gap Cave, South Africa, 2004. David Shaw. an Australian technical diver, descended into Bozeman's Gap in 2004 to recover the body of another diver who had perished a decade earlier. He reached the corpse at over 270 meters deep, and then something went wrong. As he tried to lift the body, its degraded suit released trapped air. The body moved unexpectedly. David became entangled, then disoriented. His camera filmed everything, including his final breath. 10 days later, both David's body and the corpse he was recovering floated to the surface. The cave had released what it had taken, but not without one final victim. Music cue. Deep Syndrome Mechanical Breathing FX. 5. The Deadly Depths of System Huautla, Oaxaca, Mexico. System Huautla is among the deepest cave systems on Earth. In 2018, an international team of explorers spent weeks mapping its lower levels. The expedition pushed human endurance. Underground camps, freezing water, tight vertical climbs. One member fell ill 1,000 meters underground. The evacuation took 4 days. Another nearly drowned in cycle. These aren't isolated incidents. Every major expedition to Huautla brings its own brush with death. And yet they return. Again and again. Because deep in Huautla lies something profound, the unknown. Music cue. Slow tribal percussion with echoing water drops. 11. Beaufort Springs Cave, Florida, USA, 2022. A peaceful Florida morning turned tragic when 2 divers, a father and his teenage son, entered Beaufort Springs Cave. Locals noticed their car parked unusually long. When rescue divers finally arrived, they found both men dead, floating near the entrance of a deep shaft. The son, 15, had followed his experienced father into a cave system far beyond recreational standards. It was believed the teen's equipment failed, or he panicked. The father tried to help, sacrificing his own heir. The bodies were discovered near each other, linked by love, but lost to the depths. The tragedy shook the diving community. How could a seasoned diver bring his son into such a place? Others saw it as a final bond between them, a shared experience that ended in silence. Beaufort Springs remains open, though its reputation has shifted. From serene sanctuary to deadly reminder. Music cue. Hollow echoes with distant breathing loop. 12. Nam Talu Cave Flood, Thailand, 2007. In 2007, a group of tourists and their guides explored Nam Talu Cave, a beautiful formation in Thailand's Khao Sok National Park. But beauty turned to horror when sudden monsoon rains flooded the cave without warning. 8 people drowned. Their bodies were found days later. Among them, foreign tourists, local guides, and a national park ranger. The cave had no emergency exit, no higher ground. It was a death trap. Survivors described total darkness, screams, and panic. One man said he floated for hours, clutching a log, hearing others vanish into water. Despite the warnings, tourists still visit the cave today. The flood's lesson? Nature doesn't wait. Music cue. Fast-paced percussion under rushing water effects. 14. Phantom Springs Cave, second dive attempt 2024. Following Brett Hemphill's death in 2023, another elite dive team returned to Phantom Springs Cave. Their goal: finish mapping the route and recover his final instruments. What they found was worse than imagined. Deep in the passage, gear had shifted, silk obscured every turn. One diver briefly lost the guideline, a death sentence in underwater cave diving. Panic clawed at the edges of their focus. They turned back, but not before capturing new sonar data, revealing that Phantom Springs may go even deeper. But deeper means deadlier. The 2024 expedition made it out alive, but barely. And the message was clear. Brett had been right. The cave wasn't finished. Music cue. Electronic tremor with high-pitched sonar pings. 15. Sheave Cave, Oaxaca, Mexico. Ongoing. Sheave Cave is a monster. One of the deepest known cave systems in the Western Hemisphere. American and Mexican teams have spent decades trying to map its depths. In 2021, they reached 8,538 feet. The cave demands reach underground. Teams live inside for 30 days at a time, hauling gear, rationing light. They cross waterfalls, scale vertical shafts, and sleep on stone ledges. Injuries are common. So is isolation. One diver nearly drowned in a flooded tunnel after gear failure. Another had a leg broken in a fall and had to be extracted by stretcher over 6 days. She was not a story of one tragedy, but a saga of sustained madness. Explorers keep going back. Why? To find the bottom of the world. Music cue. Rhythmic pounding like a subterranean heartbeat. 16. Gouffre-Berger, France, 1967. Once the deepest cave known, Gouffre-Berger in France became a destination for elite explorers. In 1967, tragedy struck. 8 young cavers were trapped by a sudden storm. Water filled the tunnel rapidly. They tried to escape, but were caught in a narrow shaft. One by one, they drowned. A rescue party recovered their bodies days later. The images were devastating. The cave was closed for years. When it reopened, it carried the weight of grief. Families placed flowers at the entrance. Now fully mapped, Gouffre-Berger still draws explorers. But every descent carries the memory of the 8 lost souls. Music cue. Gentle French choir over echoing drops. 17. Pierre Saint Martin, France/Spain border, 1952. Marcel Lubin, a pioneer in vertical caving, descended into Pierre Saint Martin in 1952. A cable snapped. He fell over 80 meters. Still alive, he lay in agony for 2 days while rescuers tried to reach him. They failed. He died alone in the cold abyss. His friend, who had been with him just hours earlier, had to climb back up and announce the loss. The accident changed how rope systems were tested. It also marked the first televised cave rescue attempt. Marcel's helmet and diary were recovered. Today, they sit in a museum, a symbol of exploration's price. Music cue. Tension strings with metallic cable sounds. 18. Lechuguilla Cave, New Mexico, USA, 1986 present. Lechuguilla is a masterpiece of nature. Discovered fully in 1986, it revealed miles of crystals, formations, and bacteria unseen by science. But beauty demands pain. Researchers live inside for up to 14 days. They battle hunger, hypothermia, and psychological fatigue. Injuries are common. One scientist broke an arm in a collapse and had to crawl back to base camp. But the data is priceless. Antibiotics, evolutionary secrets. Even lunar training missions happen here now. Lechuguilla doesn't kill often, but it consumes. And those who enter rarely return sane. Music cue. Ethereal ambience with glassy synths and distant chimes. 19. Cave of Swallows, San Luis Potosí, Mexico. Base jump tragedy, 2013. At over 1,200 feet deep, Cave of Swallows is the largest free-fall pit on Earth. Base jumpers from across the world come to leap into its black mouth. In 2013, one of them miscalculated. He hit the sidewall, falling at terminal velocity. The impact was heard from above. It took hours to recover his body. Spectators watched in horror. No one jumped again that day. The cave had claimed another soul. Since then, regulations increased. But thrill seekers still come, and the cave still waits. Music cues, whistling wind, and sudden drop into silence. 20. Chavandi's Cave, Sweden 2000s. Little known and rarely mapped, Chavandi's Cave in Sweden hides beneath snowy rock. Locals call it cursed, a place where compasses spin and screams are swallowed. In the early 2000s, 2 amateur explorers went missing here. Only one body was found. The other was never located, despite GPS data showing they never left. Search teams reported bizarre behavior, faint whispering, tools going missing, gear failing. The cave was resealed by local authorities. Folklore? Maybe, but to those who were there, it felt like something was watching. Music cue. Nordic throat singing over ambient frost winds. 21. Mount Elgon's Kaitum Cave, Kenya. Strange deaths 1980s. In the shadow of Mount Elgon lies Kaitum Cave, carved not by water, but by elephants mining salt with their tusks. But the cave holds darker secrets. In the 1980s, 2 visitors contracted an unknown hemorrhagic fever after exploring its depths. They bled to death within days. Scientists traced it to a viral strain later identified as Marburg. Similar to Ebola, the disease had incubated in the cave, carried by bats. The media labeled Kaitum a death cave. The outbreak inspired the book The Hot Zone, and indirectly, Hollywood's Outbreak. Still, Kaitum remains open. Elephants return nightly and thrill seekers follow. Few realize they're stepping into one of the deadliest biological traps on Earth. Music cue. High-pitched ringing tones with tribal drum patterns. Heartbeat monitor fades. 22. Sarma Cave, Abkhazia/Georgia. Record depth and isolation. Sarma is the second deepest cave on Earth. It extends over 1.6 miles straight down. Explorers describe its lower chambers as beyond desolation. In 2012, a Ukrainian caver named Gennady Samkin led an expedition that nearly ended in disaster. A flash flood occurred deep within. Communications were severed. Food supplies dwindled. They spent 5 days trapped, rationing light and oxygen, listening to the echo of their own fear. One caver later admitted he hallucinated entire conversations with people who weren't there. They made it out alive, but forever changed. Sarma became more than just a cave. It was a crucible of human limits. Music cue. Droning bass swell with subtle panic-inducing high frequencies. 13. Jimbo Ice Cave Collapse, Washington, USA, 2015. A group of hikers entered Big Four ice caves in Washington state in July 2015, despite warnings. The caves were melting unstable, yet curiosity pulled them in. Without warning, the ceiling collapsed. Tons of ice and rock crushed 5 people. A girl, just 34 years old, died shielding her niece. Her body was recovered the next morning. The collapse was caught on film by others nearby. You can hear the screams. The footage is haunting. The entrance had signs. But signs don't stop determination. The cave has since collapsed further, changed by seasons. Its beauty still draws explorers. But Jimbo Ice Cave now carries a deadly memory. Music cue. Wind and breaking ice layered with slow choral drone. 14. Phantom Springs Cave. Second dive attempt, 2024. Following Brett Hemphill's death in 2023, another elite dive team returned to Phantom Springs Cave. Their goal: finish mapping the route and recover his final instruments. What they found was worse than imagined. Deep in the passage, gear had shifted, silt obscured every turn. One diver briefly lost a guideline, a death sentence in underwater cave diving. Panic clawed at the edges of their focus. They turned back, but not before capturing new sonar data, revealing that Phantom Springs may go even deeper. But deeper means deadlier. The 2024 expedition made it out alive, but barely. And the message was clear. Brett had been right. The cave wasn't finished. Music cue. Electronic tremor with high-pitched sonar pings. 15. Sheep Cave, Oaxaca, Mexico, ongoing. Sheep Cave is a monster. One of the deepest known cave systems in the Western Hemisphere. American and Mexican teams have spent decades trying to map its depths. In 2021, they reached 8,538 feet. The cave demands weeks underground. Teams live inside for 30 days at a time, hauling gear, rationing light. They cross waterfalls, scale vertical shafts, and sleep on stone ledges. Injuries are common. So is isolation. One diver nearly drowned in a flooded tunnel after gear failure. Another had a leg broken in a fall and had to be extracted by stretcher over 6 days. She was not a story of one tragedy. The saga of sustained madness. Explorers keep going back. Why? To find the bottom of the world. Music cue. Rhythmic pounding like a subterranean heartbeat. 16. Gouffre Burger, France, 1967. Once the deepest cave known, Gouffre Burger in France became a destination for elite explorers. In 1967, tragedy struck. 8 young cavers were trapped by a sudden storm. Water filled the tunnels rapidly. They tried to escape, but were caught in a narrow shaft. One by one, they drowned. A rescue party recovered their bodies days later. The images were devastating. The cave was closed for years. When it reopened, it carried the weight of grief. Families placed flowers at the entrance. Now fully mapped, Gouffre Burger still draws explorers. But every descent carries the memory of the 8 lost souls. Music cue. Gentle French choir over echoing drops. 17. Pierre Saint Martin, France/Spain border, 1952. Marcel Lubins, a pioneer in vertical caving, descended into Pierre Saint Martin in 1952. A cable snapped. He fell over 80 meters. Still alive. He lay in agony for 2 days while rescuers tried to reach him. They failed. He died alone in the cold abyss. His friend, who had been with him just hours earlier, had to climb back up and announce the loss. The accident changed how rope systems were tested. It also marked the first televised cave rescue attempt. Marcel's helmet and diary were recovered. Today, they sit in a museum, a symbol of exploration's price. Music cue. Tension strings with metallic cable sounds. 18 Lechuguilla Cave, New Mexico, USA, 1986 present. Lechuguilla is a masterpiece of nature. Discovered fully in 1986, it revealed miles of crystals, formations, and bacteria unseen by science. But beauty demands pain. Researchers live inside for up to 14 days. They battle hunger, hypothermia, and psychological fatigue. Injuries are common. One scientist broke an arm in a collapse and had to crawl back to base camp. But the data is priceless. Antibiotics, evolutionary secrets, even lunar training missions happen here now. Lechuguilla doesn't kill often, but it consumes. And those who enter rarely return the same. Music cue. Ethereal ambience with glassy synths and distant chimes. 19. Cave of Swallows, San Luis Potosí, Mexico. Base jump tragedy, 2013. At over 1,200 feet deep, Cave of Swallows is the largest free-fall pit on Earth. Base jumpers from across the world come a leap into its black mouth. In 2013, one of them miscalculated. He hit the sidewall, falling at terminal velocity. The impact was heard from above. It took hours to recover his body. Spectators watched in horror. No one jumped again that day. The cave had claimed another soul. Since then, regulations increased, but thrill seekers still come, and the cave still waits. Music cue, whistling wind and sudden drop into silence. 20, Giovanni's Cave, Sweden, 2000s. Little known and rarely mapped. Giovanni's Cave in Sweden hides beneath snowy rock. Locals call it cursed, a place where compasses spin and screams are swallowed. In the early 2000s, 2 amateur explorers went missing here. Only one body was found. The other was never located, despite GPS data showing they never left. Search teams reported bizarre behavior, faint whispering, tools going missing, gear failing. The cave was resealed by local authorities. Folklore? Maybe, but to those who were there, it felt like something was watching. Music cue, Nordic throat singing over ambient frost winds. 21, Mount Elgon's Kaitum Cave, Kenya, strange deaths 1980s. In the shadow of Mount Elgon lies Kaitum Cave, carved not by water, but by elephants mining salt with their tusks. But the cave holds darker secrets. In the 1980s, 2 visitors contracted an unknown hemorrhagic fever after exploring its depths. They bled to death within days. Scientists traced it to a viral strain later identified as Marburg. Similar to Ebola, the disease had incubated in the cave, carried by bats. The media labeled Kaitum a death cave. The outbreak inspired the book The Hot Zone, and indirectly, Hollywood's Outbreak. Still, Kaitum remains open. Elephants return nightly and thrill seekers follow. Few realize they're stepping into one of the deadliest biological traps on Earth. Music cue, high-pitched ringing tones with tribal drum patterns, heartbeat monitor fades. 22, Sarma Cave, Abkhazia/Georgia, record depth and isolation. Sarma is the second deepest cave on Earth. It extends over 1.6 miles straight down. Explorers describe its lower chambers as beyond desolation. In 2012, a Ukrainian caver named Gennady Samikin led an expedition that nearly ended in disaster. A flash flood occurred deep within. Communications were severed. Food supplies dwindled. They spent 5 days trapped, rationing light and oxygen, listening to the echo of their own fear. One caver later admitted he hallucinated entire conversations with people who weren't there. They made out alive, but forever changed. Sarma became more than just a cave. It was a crucible of human limits. Music cue, droning bass swell with subtle panic-inducing high frequencies. 23. The Chasm of Lost Souls, Colorado, USA, unconfirmed disappearances. Locals call it the Chasm of Lost Souls. Located in an unmarked canyon in Colorado, it's rumored to extend beyond mapped dimensions. Officially unnamed, this limestone pit has become infamous for strange disappearances. Between 1993 and 2008, 3 separate amateur groups entered and never returned. No bodies, no gear, no evidence. Some speculate they became trapped. Others believe the cave connects to deeper, unmapped tunnels, perhaps even geothermal vents. The U.S. Forest Service eventually closed the trail, citing environmental hazards. But the silence surrounding the cave only deepens its mythos. Music cue, hollow flute over reversed ambient textures. 24. Vertiglavica Cave, Slovenia, the deepest vertical drop. Vertiglavica boasts the world's deepest known vertical pitch, 603 meters in a single drop. That's nearly 2 Eiffel Towers stacked atop each other. It is terrifying. In 2015, a European team attempted a base ramp held for scientific documentation. One climber's anchor failed halfway down. He bounced from the walls, spiraling, screaming, before his second line caught. Barely. It took 4 hours to haul him back up. He had multiple fractures and never caved again. The team finished their mission, but with a renewed sense of caution. The vertical void below still haunts those who looked into it. Music cue, low rhythmic strings building into silence, then sudden slam of reverb. 25, Krubra Cave, Georgia, 2004 to 2012. Krubra Cave, once the deepest known cave, became the target of record-breaking dives and descents. In 2004, Russian and Ukrainian explorers reached minus 2,080 meters. In 2012, they pushed deeper. The cave features everything from tight squeezes to underwater passages, so cold they burn. Divers describe moments of panic-induced paralysis. A photographer nearly died after his dry suit failed. He crawled, shivering and blind, to a thermal shelter. It took 6 days to recover. Krubra is a frontier human exploration, and one misstep from eternity. Music cue, metallic drone with breathing mask FX. 26, Sump of Sorrows, UK false exit real death. In an English cave system, a section known unofficially as the Sump of Sorrows claimed the life of veteran diver Ken Hastings. The passage appears navigable, but leads into a collapsing choke point. In 2006, Ken entered the sump, seeking a shortcut to a lower chamber. He never resurfaced. Rescue teams followed his line, only to find it tangled and snapped. Divers believed he reached an air pocket and waited, slowly succumbing to hypothermia. His body was recovered 4 months later. Today, the sump remains sealed. Its nickname is a grim reminder. In some caves, even experience cannot save you. Music cue, distant breathing, ticking clock, water drips fading to nothing. 27, Socramlucas Cave, India, flash flood incident, 2018. Located in the wettest region on Earth, Socramlucas is deceptively calm, but in 2018, a team of researchers mapping its climate history encountered sudden monsoon flooding. 3 were swept into a lower chamber. 1 clung to a ledge for 13 hours before rescue. The others had to swim blind through total darkness. They survived, but barely. The experience underscored the volatility of India's cave systems, where weather above can kill below. Ironically, they were studying ancient flood patterns when nature gave them a brutal reminder. Music cue, layered rainfall, deep syndromes, faint screams. 28, Blue Hole Dahab, Egypt, the diver's graveyard. While technically a sinkhole, the Blue Hole in Dahab, Egypt, has claimed over 150 divers, making it one of the deadliest sites on Earth. The Arch, a tunnel leading to open sea, tempts divers below 55 meters. Many never make it back. Nitrogen narcosis clouds a mind. Oxygen runs thin. One diver, Yuri Lipsky, recorded his own death in 2000. His final moments are still online, a terrifying lesson in overconfidence. Despite warnings, tourists and amateurs still attempt the Arch. Most are never recovered. The Blue Hole is beautiful and merciless. Music cue, haunting vocal harmonies over sonar pings. 29, the Well of Barhout, Yemen, Devil's Hole. Locals call it the Well of Hell. Located in eastern Yemen, this mysterious sinkhole drops over 100 meters straight down. No one knows its true depth. Legends say it's cursed, that those who enter never return. In 2021, a team finally descended, expecting supernatural phenomena. Instead, they found rare cave pearls, toxic gases, and bones. The oxygen levels were dangerously low. Their gear failed sporadically. Two team members became ill, and one had to be evacuated. Whether haunted or not, the Well of Barhout proved one thing. Danger doesn't need myths. It only needs depth. Music cue. Whispers layered under rising low drones. Heartbeats increase. 30. Cueva de los Cristales, Mexico, heat chamber of death. Beneath the Nica mine in Mexico lies Cueva de los Cristales, home to the largest crystals ever found, but it's also one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Temperatures reach 58 degrees Celsius, 136 degrees Fahrenheit, with nearly 100% humidity. Without a refrigerated suit, survival time is under 10 minutes. Scientists risked everything to study it in the early 2000s. One researcher passed out while exiting and had to be dragged by his teammates. Another's camera fogged and they lost visual contact, only to find him collapse, convulsing from heat stroke. The cave is now sealed again. What remains is a testament to how beauty and death often grow side by side. Music cue, crystalline ringing, echoing thuds, sizzling static fade. "31, Lechuguilla Cave, New Mexico, USA, the Crystal Crawl Incident. Lechuguilla is often described as the most beautiful cave in the United States. But in 2008, beauty turned sinister when a geochemist named Dr. Laura Bennett found herself trapped during a solo exploration of the Crystal Crawl. What was supposed to be a simple passage mapping session became a nightmare when a ceiling collapsed behind her, sealed the exit. With no radio contact and limited water, she conserved energy, writing her final thoughts in a notebook. Rescuers arrived nearly 36 hours later after she missed a scheduled check-in. Her voice was weak, but she was alive. Barely. The rescue was considered one of the most difficult in the cave's history. Dr. Bennett never returned underground. Her final journal entry read, "Even beauty becomes a monster when it forgets you." Music cue, echoing wind, glassy textures, rising panic. 32. The Devil's Cave, Germany, Myth and Madness. Teufelsschor, the Devil's Cave, is a limestone system in Bavaria steeped in myth. But one 1991 tourist excursion turned real when a group became separated after a lighting system failure. Without flashlights and with disorientation setting in, one member suffered a panic attack and fled into the dark. He was found hours later, scratched and trembling, claiming he saw the devil watching from a stone. Tour guides now carry backup lighting and warn visitors of the psychological effects caves can induce. While no fatalities occurred, the cave's sinister reputation only grew stronger. In the silent dark, fear becomes its own predator. Music cue, low choirs and deep ambient chimes. 33. Jewel Cave, South Dakota, USA, claustrophobia strike. One of the longest caves in the world, Jewel Cave offers breathtaking formations. In 2011, a photography team became stranded after a rock slide sealed a passage they had just entered. What followed was not starvation or injury, but a battle with the mind. Claustrophobia set in. The lead photographer began hallucinating that the walls were shrinking. Rescue took 18 hours. When they emerged, they described the experience as being buried alive in slow motion. Their footage remains some of the most surreal ever captured. The cave gave them back, but it left a scar that no lens could erase. Music cue, tense string plucks, whispered echoes, heartbeat loops. 34. Whiz Caves, France, cave diving tragedy. In 1998, two expert divers entered the flooded Whiz Cave system in southern France. Their goal, to map an unmapped branch using side-mount tanks. One diver's light failed at the worst possible moment, inside a silt-rich siphon. The fin of the other kicked up sediment, and both were immediately plunged into zero visibility. Only one made it out. The survivor later said, "I knew if I tried to find him, I'd die too." The second diver's body wasn't recovered for 5 years. In cave diving, mercy is not part of the system. Music cue. Subtle sonar pulses. Distressed breathing. 35. Mount Rainier Ice Cave, USA, frozen alive. Ice caves beneath Mount Rainier are mesmerizing. But in 2015, a section of the cave collapsed on a group of visitors taking photographs. One person was buried under tons of frozen debris. Rescue teams struggled to dig through unstable ice. Time slipped away. When they finally reached the victim, it was too late. The cave entrance was sealed for months, though new ice caves formed each season. Still, locals warn, the mountain takes when it wants. Beauty and danger are permanently entwined in glacial veins. Music cue. Creaking ice, muffled screams, winter wind. 36. Sheave Cave System, Oaxaca, Mexico, scientific breakdown. Sheave is deep, hostile, and only partially explored. During a 2021 expedition, a scientist had a mental breakdown after 9 days underground. He believed time had stopped. Team members reported him wandering into dangerous areas, whispering, "Already dead." He had to be sedated and forcibly evacuated. Experts now monitor psychological health just as rigorously as physical fitness during such missions. Sheave's threat isn't just death, it's the unraveling of identity itself. Music cue. Distorted ticking, reverse voice murmurs, cavernous reverb. 37. Sistema Huautla, Mexico, the vanishing route. Sistema Huautla is Mexico's deepest cave system, twisting, sprawling, and prone to sudden floods. In 2018, an elite team of American and Mexican cavers ventured into a branch believed to be a dead end. It wasn't. The route dropped sharply and unexpectedly into a water-filled shaft. One member slipped, plunging 10 meters into icy black water. The team had to improvise a rescue pulley while their injured colleague shivered on a narrow ledge. They spent 3 extra days underground, rationing protein bars and water purified from the cave itself. Every hour increased the risk of hypothermia and collapse. When they finally emerged, they called it a journey through the jaws of the earth. Sistema Huautla had tested their limits, and almost won. Music cue. Rattling ropes, distant thunder, cold synth wash. 38. Hellhole Cave, West Virginia, USA, toxic descent. Hellhole is one of the most biologically important caves in the U.S., home to rare bats and deep chambers. But its entrance is a vertical shaft over 200 feet straight down, and it lives up to its name. In 2006, a team member lost consciousness due to carbon dioxide buildup near the cave floor. Emergency response was delayed due to the narrowness of the shaft and lack of stable anchors. When they reached him, he was alive, barely breathing, pupils dilated. It took 2 hours to haul him out through a system of ropes and counterweights. The cause was natural, a concentration of CO2 emitted from deep within the earth. Even today, explorers must monitor air quality constantly or risk collapsing in the dark. Music cue. Pressure hum. Gas leak hiss. Pulsing heartbeat effects. 39. Wind Cave, South Dakota, Labyrinth Madness. Wind Cave is a sprawling maze of passages so complex that even veteran explorers use breadcrumbs, literally, to find their way back. In 1994, 2 Boy Scouts entered an unmarked corridor and vanished. A full-scale search followed. Tunnels spiraled, looped, and turned back on themselves. One rescuer compared it to navigating the brain of a god. The boys were found 27 hours later, dehydrated and sobbing. One had written a goodbye note on a granola bar wrapper. The event led to new protocols and map updates. But the cave remains unforgiving, with miles still unmapped. In Wind Cave, it's not the depth that kills, it's the direction. Music cue. Fluttering winds, distant whispers, child's voice echoing. "40. The giant crystal cave, Venezuela, Poison Beauty. Not to be confused with Mexico's cave of the same name. Venezuela's giant crystal cave to the top toxic geology. Formed inside an abandoned mine, it glows with yellow and white crystals, but hides a deadly secret. In 2009, 3 locals entered to collect minerals. They were found dead 2 days later. Their lungs had filled with hydrogen sulfide gas, emitted from below. The cave was never marked or sealed. Since then, more explorers have fallen ill. Headaches, vomiting, confusion, all signs of low-level poisoning. The site remains unofficial and unregulated. In this cave, death is invisible, odorless, and glistening like treasure. Music cue, shimmering static, ticking timer. Slow fade to silence. 41. Frasassi Caves, Italy, sulfur spirits. The Frasassi Caves are celebrated for their surreal formations, but deeper sections contain lethal pockets of hydrogen sulfide gas. In 2002, a pair of spelunkers seeking to photograph unlit chambers collapsed mid-descent. Their lifelines prevented a total fall, but they dangled unconscious until a third team member manually hauled them out barehanded. One required CPR and later described visions of glowing faces watching me from the rocks. Gas sensors were introduced shortly after. Still, some explorers whisper about the breathing walls and the strange dreams they cause. The deeper you go, the more the air turns on you. Music cue, swirling ambient with dissonant vocal layers. 42. The tombs of Kanets, Iran, drowned in silence. Ancient underground irrigation systems called Kanets run beneath Iran's deserts. In 2010, a historian investigating one of these collapsed tunnels became trapped after a sudden cave-in. Water slowly rose inside the tunnel, and radio contact failed. His team above ground drilled rapidly and inserted a tube for breathing, but he was already unconscious when they reached him. The incident sparked public outcry and reinforced how ancient man-made systems could be as deadly as natural ones. His final words, recorded on a headcam, were, "I hear water. I don't know if it's coming to save me or swallow me." Music cue, gurgling submersion, heartbeat slowing, desert wind. 43. Castle Guard Cave, Canada, frozen lava. Located under a glacier, Castle Guard is an icy maze only accessible during winter. In 2005, an explorer fell into a narrow fissure. When a slab of ice cracked beneath her, the team couldn't reach her directly. They had to melt their way sideways using hot water hoses and thermal rods. It took 8 hours in sub-zero conditions. She was hypothermic but conscious, describing the cave as alive with teeth made of ice. The event redefined the risks of cold environment spelunking and the resilience required to survive it. Music cue, metallic clinks, brittle ice shatters, sustained drums. 44. Barton Creek Cave, Belize, bones, and echoes. Used by the ancient Maya for ceremonial burials, Barton Creek Cave contains human remains and relics. In 2014, a team of archaeologists was conducting sonar scans when they became disoriented during a power failure. One researcher wandered into a flooded shaft and nearly drowned. When rescued, she insisted she heard voices chanting in the walls. The experience left her shaken. She later quit her field altogether. Whether spiritual or psychological, the cave's weight on human minds is undeniable. Music cue, flute-like wind, soft choral hums, heartbeat percussion. 45. Mammoth Cave, Kentucky, USA, the Lost Room. The longest known cave system in the world has countless branches. In 1988, 2 park rangers discovered a small, unmapped chamber and marked it for future study. When a team returned a week later, the room was gone, collapsed, buried in limestone. A GoPro left behind captured the moment of collapse. One ranger who escaped by inches later developed PTSD and refused to return to any subterranean environment. Even the largest caves hold secrets too unstable to keep. Music cue, crumbling stone, reverse echo effects, pressure thumps. "46. Dragon's Breath Cave, Namibia, No Way Back. Named for the hot air that escapes from its depths, Dragon's Breath contains the largest underground non-glacial lake. In 1997, a diver lost his way beneath the surface. He carried a guideline, but failed to secure one anchor. In the darkness, the line looped behind a rock. He spent hours retracing his path by feeling alone. His oxygen ran low. Rescue divers found him unconscious, floating silently just meters from the surface. The cave, they said, had almost exhaled for the last time. Music cue, echo breathing, sonar pulses, deep bubbling textures. 47. The Nutty Putty Cave, Utah, USA, final descent. John Edward Jones became a tragic symbol of caving's merciless finality in 2009 while exploring Nutty Putty with his family. He became trapped in a narrow vertical tunnel head first. Efforts to pull him out failed. Rescue crews worked for over 27 hours. The cave walls shifted. Eventually, he lost consciousness. His body remained sealed within the tunnel. The cave was closed forever. A plaque now marks the surface above his tomb. There are no metaphors here, only the raw truth of nature's indifference. Music cue, slow, mournful piano and low heartbeat rhythm. 48. Ellison's Cave, Georgia, USA, in despair. Ellison's Cave holds some of the deepest vertical drops in America. In 2011, 2 college students attempted the fantastic pit descent without proper training. One lost control and smashed into the wall at high velocity. The other panicked and tangled their rope. It took rescue teams 12 hours to retrieve both bodies. The tragedy was filmed on helmet cams that later aided caving safety reform. In vertical caves, one slip is not a fall, it's a final statement. Music cue. Cable winds, body thud FX, siren-like ambience. 49. Blue Spring Cave, Tennessee, USA, The Crawling Death. Blue Spring has some of the tightest known crawl spaces. In 2017, a solo explorer misjudged a rock squeeze and became lodged. He had no radio, no signal, no backup. His body was found days later, with one arm stretched out toward the light. A marker now warns explorers: respect the Earth's throat or be swallowed. There is no negotiation with stone. Music cue, gravel movement, choking ambient layers, droning synths. 50. System of Purification, Mexico, the silent ending. One of the deepest known cave systems in Mexico remains partially unmapped. In 2022, a team entered to explore a rumored unrecorded drop. Only 2 returned. The third was never found. No sound, no distress call. His tracking beacon stopped transmitting 300 meters below. To this day, the chamber is sealed off. His last journal entry read, "I hear nothing down here. That's how I know it's real." Not all cave deaths are dramatic. Some are just vanishing acts. Music cue, fading static, ticking clock, whispering wind.